each individual responsible for their own actions and safety. Some wild foods are extremely toxic if you misidentify them, so always be aware of this. Carelessness can result in injury or death potentially, so very important thing to remember: never eat any plant you can't ID. In other words, if in doubt, you throw it out. Okay, so that's kind of the disclaimer. Now, in terms of identification, I'm just going to talk about that briefly. When we're trying to identify a plant, you know, whatever, basically the method is you're trying to find 3 features of that plant that stick out. And once you get that, you want to make sure you find 2 or 3 references that confirm those features. And I'll give you some examples of that later. But you don't want to make an identification of a plant on the basis of just... Some plants have plants that are similar, but poisonous. So you always want to, when you're finding a plant you potentially want to identify, you always want to know which plants are poisonous that are potentially similar. Okay? You want to know which plants are edible and at which time...
Let's move. Let's move.
What's that?
I would move. That's cops, right?
No.
I think it's a park.
Okay, which plants are poisonous?
Yeah.
And then which plants are edible?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So never make it fit. So if you find something and you think, oh, this might be it, don't force it to fit. Make sure you're 100% positive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Poison lookalikes. Which plants are edible?
Yes.
Don't
make it fit. Yeah, again, if you're not 100%, don't just put it away. If in doubt, throw it out. Okay? So 3 characteristics from 3 sources, and make sure the sources you use as references are actually reliable. There's some people who write books and stuff about foraging, and they don't have they're not using field experience, they're just repeating things that other people wrote.
Yeah,
this is surprisingly common.
Yes.
Kind of check out, I'll send some sources out to you guys later that are reliable that I've been using, like for email and stuff. Okay, so now in terms of harvesting, okay, just with harvesting anything, you want to have a harvesting ethic, so you don't, my rule is generally I don't take more than 1/3 of anything I'm harvesting. Some things that still might be too much. Some plants recover totally fine if you take a lot. Some plants, if you take too many, you'll wipe out the colony or something like that. So you want to be mindful of how much you're harvesting. You want to be mindful of the area you're in, if it's contaminated. So if you're about 100 feet from like a sewer, or you're downhill from something like industrial or even residential, you don't really want to harvest too much from there. Whatever is flowing downhill, you want to be careful with that. You want to know which season, which part of the plant is available. So, for instance, this time of year, we're coming out of winter into spring. So it's still root season. Roots are going to be late autumn, winter, and early spring. Okay, as long as the ground is thawed out, you can get the roots. Okay, and those are some of your best sources of food, and we're going to be focusing on that, is the roots today. But there's some things popping up, so I'll show those on the way too.
So roots are in season pretty much every time except summer.
Yeah, they'll go out of season once spring starts. Like early spring, they'll still be in season, but once spring gets going, not really. Basically, once the tops of the plants start to grow vigorously, then it'll take all the energy out of the root, and the root won't have a lot of sugar in it anymore. It'll get kind of woody. So that's how that works. When you're harvesting, make sure you inspect everything. Like once you've harvested, if you have it in your house or whatever, just double check everything you've harvested before you process it in any way. Make sure, again, those poisonous lookalikes didn't slip in by accident when you were grabbing something, or you didn't grab a handful of something else by accident before you eat it. And when you do eat something the first time, you always be as conservative. Make a very small portion, even if you're 100% sure, because sometimes your body might not digest something new very well, something like that. And if you don't have access to resources, say, or experts or anything like that, and you're in a situation where you have to eat, and you know what I mean, an emergency situation or something like that, you can do an edibility test. So basically the way the edibility test works is, let's say you got a new plant you want to test out. First, you're going to take some juice from the plant, and you're going to just put it on like a sensitive part of skin, like where it's really thin, like on your wrist here, or you know where your arm is over here in the crook of your arm, and just see if it irritates it or anything. Then you wait a few hours, then you try putting it just on your lips, wait a bit, see if it irritates your lips. If it doesn't, then you take a tiny bit, you put it like under your tongue, you wait a bit, you spit it out, you don't swallow it, you see if you get any burning sensation in your mouth, anything like that. Then after you've done that process, like slowly, then you might try eating a very small portion and wait 8 hours to a day. See, like when I say small portion, very small piece, wait 8 hours to a day. If it doesn't affect you, then you can start, slowly trying to eat it. So basically just incrementally, you do it very incrementally. Does that make sense?
So what are some side effects of different poisonous herbs or berries? So I guess not so much as completely lethal, but side effects that would be ideal for a job situation that would hinder your progress.
Yeah. Well, at night, usually vomiting is the main one. Stomach ache, any kind of burning, like on the skin, in the mouth, that sort of thing. Really bitter taste, nasty taste. Generally, the poison, you'll taste it or you'll get some sense that, oh, this is bad, but not always. Some plants taste really good and you'll just die. So you don't want to just go by taste alone or anything like that. Okay. Some plants, as far as I know, usually you get this stomach stuff starts first, and then it's something bad. If you're in an emergency situation, you have no other choice. You can try using charcoal to absorb whatever's in your stomach, and if you just ate it, you can try to vomit some of it out. That may be counterproductive if it's too late.
That? Oh,
if you've already processed
if it's always going down into your
you're going to lose fluids and stuff. So I'm not an expert on that. It's just something I know might help charcoal and stuff like that.
That is a basic, if you're just eating something, vomiting usually helps.
Basically, this little leaf right here. You have a camera?
Yeah.
This little leaf right here, that's a lily in its form and shape. Lilies always have lines going, I guess, parallel to the edges of the leaf. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Like all the lines they're not going to go against the edges. Straight up and down. Those are lily family. Okay, some of them are really toxic. Some of them are edible. Onions are in this family. Okay, this is not an onion. This is called Trout Lily. Its main distinguishing feature is these little blotches and spots, these reddish spots, and it has this little red part on the stem. That's one feature, and then the other feature of it...
You can eat that?
Yes, you can. The other feature is it has this little bulb with it that are kind of tasty.
Oh.
I mean, these are like a snack, but you can see what they look like anyway. It's interesting. It's not a good spot.
And where do these usually grow? Like, where would be a good spot to find these?
Yeah, that's a good question. So these are a woodland plant. Every plant is going to have its particular home that it likes. So you got woodland plants. You got plants that are, in fields, by riversides, in rivers, etc. This is a woodland plant, so it's going to grow in the shade under trees. Very common. So it produces these little bulbs.
Oh, okay, I see it.
Which are tasty.
Can they get bigger? Like what size?
They don't get much bigger.
Okay.
So like I said, this is kind of a snack, but they're nice because they are... Man, I can't seem to get it out here.
Tastes pretty good.
Yeah, you got to pull the skin off them, but it's hard for me to do right now.
Yeah.
But you see, if you pull the skin off, you get...
Oh, you mean the nut? Okay,
you
mean
get this
the seed,
little white
Oh, okay, I gotcha.
part. It's kind of like an onion almost. Similar. tiny little onions, and those are good. Just you can eat the whole thing or whatever.
And they're called willow.
Okay, these are like super common in woods and in shady spots in the woods and stuff.
What's the name of that one?
Virginia waterleaf. The reason it's called waterleaf is it has, see those little white dots right there?
Oh, okay.
Those two
in
white
the corners
dots.
there. Okay.
Yeah, it has these quote-unquote watermarks on it. That's why it's called waterleaf.
Gotcha.
And those watermarks will be these little white dots that will be on the leaves. Sometimes you won't have any, so you see a lot of these don't have those white dots, but like for instance this one, it has the white dots.
So you can get these too, waterleaf?
These are called Virginia waterleaf.
Is there any way we should
Testing
try
it right
them?
now.
Or can we just eat all
You
these
can
raw?
eat them raw. They're okay raw. You want to get young leaves when you eat leaves. Young leaves on the way, so I might as well show you. Now, something important to understand is all plants are in families, and that's a good way to just generalize things, and it makes it easier to understand plants. So this mustard family almost always has these seed heads that rise up and literally will have mustard seeds in it. So you see there's this stalk, and it'll form these branches, and you see those holes inside the branches? Those are where the seeds used to be, the mustard seeds,
Yes.
and then they pop out. So when you see these old dead twigs, this is a mustard family plant. And from all that I've read, all the sources I've read, all mustards are not toxic. So if you know it's a mustard, you can say it's not toxic according to the sources I've read, okay? Most of the plants we eat in the grocery store are from mustard family anyway. Yeah. This particular mustard is called Dame's Rocket. This one right here. So you want to find the stalk, that's the main identifying feature, and then you find the leaves growing underneath it around this time of year. This will be the first green that comes up in this area, and it has kind of a non-distinct shape, but it is a little hairy, a little bit rough, and it has these slight teeth on the edges, and those are the other identifying features. It'll also possibly turn kind of a purple color. When plants turn purple, that means it has winterizing, like antifreeze kind of property, so it can tolerate some freezing. So that's why these come up really early. Similar to nannyberry. Let me see if I can find a characteristic on it here. They're all flowering already, but when it's not flowering, these flower heads will make like kind of a claw. I think there's any left, but it'll make kind of a claw like this, and it's called nannyberry. Produces a lot of fruit, like a lot of food, a lot of calories and stuff, and it tastes really good. And this bark, if you strip it off, it's a muscle relaxant. If you ever heard of cramp bark, this is very similar to cramp bark, the herb. So it relieves.
Woodland? Location?
What's that?
Location to find that? Woodland?
This is understory, so it'll grow in the shade under trees.
Okay.
Around woods, in kind of more open areas. Pretty sick, with the exception of yew tree. So you want to know what a yew tree looks like, because it is deadly toxic, but most evergreens are not toxic. You can know the hemlock tree by the fact that it has needles, which are kind of blunt at the end. I don't know if you want to look at it up close or something. They're kind of blunt at the end. They're on a flat plane. They don't go around the branch. And on the bottom, there's two white stripes. Yew tree will have yellow stripes.
Oh, okay, I see. Yeah.
And yew tree will have bigger needles and stuff. But yeah, you want to know what a yew tree looks like for sure. Spinners, these mean it's some kind of maple tree.
Okay.
It makes these spinners.
So would there be syrup in any type of way?
Yeah,
or?
almost all maples make syrup. This looks like a box maple, which doesn't make those like leaves that look like maple leaves, but you can still tell by the seeds and kind of the bark. I'm pretty sure it's a box maple. Yeah, this would make sap, but it would have to be thicker though.
Yeah.
Are those Corellias? No. These are a garlic mustard. So again, mustard family. They'll produce this thing's seed heads. That's one identifying feature is the seed head, which these don't have them. But the other thing is they have a garlicky smell. So when you're identifying things, it's not just with your eyes. You use smell and texture and stuff like that. So when you break these up, they have a garlic smell, and that's one other feature that identifies it. You smell that?
And where do you normally find them?
They grow everywhere. They're just literally all over the place. You'll see them everywhere.
I find this is kind of what's looking.
Yeah, actually, it can be deceptive. There's some that look very similar, so you don't want to go by that alone. But that's the unmistakable feature of cattail is those little hot dog heads. See?
Watch out, guys.
Right here. So cattails are really one of the best things to know. I'd say number one plant you want to know is cattail. It grows all year. You can get the roots all year. In the summer, these seed heads, when you tap them, will just drop tons of pollen. The pollen tastes like corn flour. You can put a bag over it, tap it, get the pollen out, and you get, you know, like a flour substitute that tastes like cornmeal. It's pretty good. So, and besides that, you can get the roots all year. And when these shoots are coming up young, you can kind of just pop them out of the ground like that or whatever when they're young. Right now they're old. But then you can eat the shoots as well. So it makes 3 food products, one of them all year. It's all throughout the world, and it's immediately identifiable by these hot dog heads. And you know it's a cattail. Nothing else has those hot dog heads.
So can you eat it in that state, or do you have to cook it or anything like that?
Be assured a source of food always if you have these nearby.
So you can eat the roots of these things?
Yep.
Young or old, right?
You have to. It's a little bit of trouble, like I said, because you know they're wet and it might be cold and it's muddy, and you have to process them a little bit, which I'll explain in a second. Let me just dig one up first, because this is not that easy. They form these dense kind of like spider webs under the ground, so this colony should have the roots crisscrossing all over the place.
Gotcha.
You just want to kind of dig randomly, and you should hit them eventually. You know? Hopefully this won't take too long. Let me try the hole. Oh, here we go. Okay. See this right here?
Oh, okay.
That's a piece of root. Let me see if I can get a better piece though.
Oh, there you see a piece right there.
You can see the sugar and stuff coming out of the roots. They're better at this time of year.
Crazy, brother.
Oh, see that one right there? That's a cattail root. Before I like chop it to bits.
Oh, I think you pulled it out.
It's somewhere, in there.
Okay, here's a not bad size example, so you can get a good look at it.
Not bad, really.
But yeah, it's a little trouble to get them, but like I said, you know, there's so much value just having these. They grow everywhere, ready source of food. They taste good. So what you do with these is basically, let me cut it and I'll show you what it looks like inside. So if you look inside,
White.
that's all the food portion in there.
Okay, so
And you'll notice there's an outer layer. If you look closely, there's an outer layer and there's an inner ring.
oh yeah, I see it. That's it.
So if you see, there's an outer ring and an inner ring to it. So the thing with these is they're very fibrous in the outer ring. So with the way you eat them is you put them like on some ashes, or you roast them until they start to caramelize on the inside, and this sugar starts to drip out a little bit, and then you basically just slurp them. You slurp the inside out, and you throw away the skin. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it does kind of separates a bit.
Yeah. Once
Gotcha.
you roast it, you don't have to roast it long. It'll
How long, essentially?
few minutes.
So you'll notice it. You're saying when it's ready,
Yeah.
most likely.
You'll see. It'll get soft. You can just squeeze the inside right out, and then you just throw away the outside
The
skin,
outside.
basically.
Gotcha.
Let me take a piece.
Burdock is tricky to dig up. There's a trick to it. Burdock often goes really deep, and what you want to do is you dig out one half of it, like a half moon, and you dig really deep on that one side.
Okay.
And then I'll show you what you do. This one doesn't look too healthy, but let's see what happens. Sometimes these are absolutely monstrous. Sometimes you don't get much at all. Yeah, this one's tiny.
Oh, okay.
Although, I will just eat this now because it looks tasty.
I'll just take a picture real quick.
Yep. And Burdock, it has these
Big
heart-shaped leaves, right? And they have this groove in the stem right here.
Gotcha.
Notice that groove there, like celery or something, right? And then on the underside, they're whitish and hairy. On the underside, see, whitish, hairy. Those are the distinguishing features. Nothing really looks like that. And the leaves get enormous. They get huge. You'll see them everywhere once the leaves get mature. But these roots are very easy to clean, so the skin comes right off.
Oh wow!
And you can eat them raw or whatever. You can cook them.
So how do they? You know, when you go buy them in a store, what do they do to process them?
There also is a good root crop for winter. Okay, so you want to know this one. The thing about daylily is it's not 100% identifiable until the flower comes up. So this may or may not be the edible daylily. Because there's different colors. Some of them are unknown in their edibility. You don't want to experiment. So basically, you'll see these little shoots coming up. One of the first plants that come up in the early spring. When you dig down underneath, there should be these little balls of roots on them. See?
Okay, yeah.
Okay, these little tubers, and these you can just cook up and eat, and you can eat the whole stalk as well, but you have to cook it.
It almost looks like onions, like green onions almost.
Well,
like in the sense in terms of, yeah, okay. Yeah.
So, you know, like remember I said when the lines run with the leaf? That's
part
the
of the onion
lily family,
yeah.
which is onions or lilies.
Gotcha,
So,
gotcha.
So we have to cook them to eat them.
You have to wait till the flower head comes in, and these grow all year. You can get the roots all year. They grow almost anywhere. They reproduce really quickly. This is why it's a high value food plant, especially for winter. You want to know daylily. But you have to mark them with your eye when you see the flowers.
Okay.
You say, okay, those are, and they're orange. So you have like blue ones, yellow ones, but these are by far the most common, the orange ones. By far. They're almost the only ones I see.
So in this case, there's no orange. How did you know?
I don't know. I don't know if these are the edible.
Oh, okay.
I'd have to wait till summer.
Gotcha.
I have patches where I know them for sure.
Yeah.
I know them
You
from
know where,
experience.
okay.
This
The ones
patch
that
I don't know.
The ones that are not edible, they are poisonous.
Unknown. It's just you don't know. So you're basically
You don't want to go into the unknowns, yeah.
On the dice.
Orange.
Look like knotweeds.
You mean the red leaves here?
And they're Japanese, so they're not native, but now they grow everywhere. These are Japanese knotweed, and they produce these little shoots right here. If you look at this shoot right here, see that? That's a Japanese knotweed shoot. And these are kind of sour, and they taste very similar to rhubarb. And they're pretty good. You can pickle them and stuff. And this is the time of year you want to wait a little more. And these are not very healthy. I'll show you some healthier ones. They're a lot bigger. That's Japanese knotweed. But I'm actually trying to see if these are what I think they are.
So these aren't native, these are invasive, right?
Yeah, so-called invasive, but who knows? You wanna see those last year's dead flowers on the top, and they'll make these kind of puff balls. You see that? That's how you know them in the air. They're like a long stalk. These are a type of sunflower. They're like a wild type of sunflower. They're called Jerusalem artichoke. Also, these stalks should be rough and hairy.
Yeah, I know.
Not smooth.
Yeah, I see.
So it should be a long stalk, rough, with those old flower heads on the top, and that's how you notice where they are. Underground, hopefully these are kind of big, so you'll see.
And they normally grow close to the water?
They grow everywhere. They're very aggressive, but yeah, they do best beside the river. These should be pretty nice specimens right here. Yeah.
Whoa! Potatoes.
Those are Jerusalem artichokes.
So what do you do with those? You cook them? Or?
Yeah, you have to. These are they're getting a little bit old when they're already sprouting like this. You have to cook these a long time.
How long?
Like till they're caramelizing and liquefying. Like the best way is to roast them.
Can you grill them?
You can. They're not as good, but yeah, you can boil them. You just want to do it for a long time.
So in the wilderness, let's say you have to start a fire and do that right here. How would you deal with it?
I would put them in embers.
Yeah,
Like you put some embers. Yeah. After the fire dies down, or just beside the fire, I would roast them.
Okay, yeah.
Same with pretty much all the roots. I find roasting is just the tastiest.
It helps with the minerals.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, if you drink it, that's fine, but sometimes it's not.
And these should pop right out of the soil. You notice, like, there's no dirt on them.
Yeah, they came up pretty easy.
They have a weird way of doing that. These are those trout lilies again. You notice those?
Yeah.
So do they, they're like a starchy potato?
Is it tuber family?
Yeah, it's a sunflower family, but this is a tuber, yeah. So this, if you replanted this somewhere else, within a year you would have another colony. These are really aggressive. The good thing about these tolerate heavy harvesting. So if you can take up almost all of the roots,
gotcha.
And next year it'll grow back again.
It'll still be fine.
Okay, that's one of the best things about them. So they produce, I think, the most, or among the most. Notice I just stuck a shovel in the ground and I already have a handful of roots,
they
right?
came up pretty easy.
So they produce a lot for a little effort, and they're not bad, but you can't get them all year. So like I said, they're a little late already when they have this. You want to get them more like when they're like this. Okay? You can still cook these though.
So when's a good time to harvest those?
So like I said, all the root season would be, when things have already died.
Okay.
In the autumn, no greens left, all this energy goes back into the root. Or before the tops grow in, like right now, you see they're already starting to grow. That's taking energy out. That changes the structure of them, and they're not really edible after that.
So what about, so even through winter though, you'll find them underneath?
Yeah.
Nice.
As long as the ground is not frozen, you can always dig these up. So these are another like high value winter food, whatever, crop in general. And these are good for gardening because they grow themselves, basically. If you just plant one of these, as long as they have a little bit of sunlight, they'll pretty much grow themselves.
Not much maintenance.
Wow.
This is very, notice, like I'm not putting in.
Yeah, they're just there. They're not that deep either.
Sometimes you'll get duds and the plants will like produce nothing or something, but very.
Take that one.
That's amazing.
Would you roast that?
Yeah, but it's basically you eat it like a potato or something.
Okay. Let me see. Hold it up.
They can boil it, roast it.
How did you find it? Based on what?
So these vines, see these vines right here? They will typically go right to the ground, and you want to dig where the vine meets the ground, and then find one of these string of pearls. Dig them up. Here's another one. See that? There's another string right here. See? So these are not very big. They get really big under like old logs and stuff like that.
Okay.
Not big enough.
So what would be the ideal spot to find these?
In areas like this. So
Dead
wet.
trees, right? You
So
said
it's
around
wet?
dead.
What's this thing right here?
Like this, like this. Like
this vine right here. That is, it's branching
I've seen
around
this a
this
lot
tree.
before. It breaks off easy like that.
It's hard to tell just from the vine. A lot of things look similar.
Yeah.
You have to actually dig, and once you see this string of pearls, that's the real identifying features. But you just get an idea from looking at the vines that, oh, that might be it.
Yeah, because it's
Type
the
of
way
thing.
it's swirling around each other.
And these are not like huge or anything.
Okay.
Something like that size. That's a little more typical. Okay. And I'll wash these off in the river maybe. It'll be hard to identify just beginning. This one right here. See this plant right here? That's the parsnip. Parsnips in the carrot family. Okay. The leaf has this kind of ladder leaf structure, so like 2 and 2, 2 and 2, 2 and 2 opposite each other like that. The top leaf is going to be more rounded off like this, and there's not going to be really deep cuts in the leaf. It'll have kind of a little light cuts around the edge. All right, it looks very similar to water hemlock, same family. Water hemlock's the most deadly plant. Water hemlock doesn't really produce roots like this. They look different. So I'll show you what the root looks like. Hopefully these are...
So with these, you eat the leaves or the roots?
Oh no, these are the roots. You don't eat the leaves on these. You eat the roots. This is tiny, by the way.
Okay.
Smell that?
Let's make sure I get it for the...
Trying to find ones that aren't tiny here.
So those are carrots.
Those are parsnips.
Parsnips.
But the smell is distinct. The ladder structure, the ladder structure of the leaves, the shape of the roots is a typical kind of carrot-shaped taproot. So remember when I was saying at the beginning, you always want to know if there's poisonous lookalikes. Most of the plants I've shown you don't have really a lot of poisonous lookalikes. This one has poison hemlock and water hemlock. Super deadly. And poison hemlock has a similar root.
No way.
Water hemlock doesn't. Water hemlock has a similar top. Poison hemlock doesn't, so you can see already how it's confusing. You have to go and look at a book and look at pictures and study it to really know this one.
Yeah.
Okay? Basically. Okay. When you cut the root in half also, you'll see there's no chambers inside, there's no sap that leaks out. Water hemlock would have sap and chambers, which are super, super dangerous. So you don't even want to touch
So
those.
this is more dry versus the other.
There won't be there's a sap that will leak out of a water.
So that's one of the key distinguishing factors.
Yeah.
Water hemlock.
Yeah, here it's just basic.
Poison hemlock will not have the sap. Poison hemlock, the roots will be very, very similar to this. Don't eat it if you don't know what it is. Just trust me. You got to build that habit.
So how do you distinguish between the poison hemlock and this?
Is the leaves. The poison hemlock is going to have leaves that are feathery, a lot like...
What about this root that's in the middle? Is that distinguished?
No, that's common. All carrot family. Oh, here's an example. You see this? This is a wild carrot, right? You see how the leaves are very feathery and cut up?
Gotcha.
That's going to be similar to poison hemlock, okay? This is not very cut up. It's a whole leaf. It's in one piece. That's a water hemlock or a parsnip, okay? So yeah, you got to be careful with this one. But if you do know this one, you can see it's everywhere, and some of them get really big, and they grow really easily. And you can get them, in the root season. So, yeah, and I like them. They're tasty.